Welcome back, everyone. I'm Sarah Peck, and this is the Startup Pregnant Podcast. So many of you maybe heard a couple weeks ago when I talked about deciding to pause the podcast and saw the break that I took when I was thinking about how do I make a decision about whether or not to stop this podcast, to keep going, to pivot, and where am I with regards to making content. So internally, I actually made a pretty big shift and I said, I am pausing content. And here's why. If you want to hear about that, go back and listen to the previous episode because I talk about what I'm doing and why I'm pausing, and then also why I'm giving little updates as part of the podcast pause. Today, I want to share with you my first update on how my goals are going and what I've been working on and what's working and what surprised me. Welcome to the Startup Pregnant Podcast, where we talk to creative leaders about what it means to be an entrepreneur and a parent. I'm your host, Sarah K. Peck. So I just wanted to check in and tell you a little bit about what's happened since I made the kind of conceptual, heart-level decision to pause the podcast for the fall and give you a little glimpse into what has transpired because I think it is so cool. Since deciding to take the podcast and put it on the backseat just for a short time period, just taking my intuition and my knowledge of seasons and realizing that right now I need to take a season and have the podcast step back for a minute. A couple of remarkable things happened right away. The first week that I didn't have a podcast episode go up and go live, I had more space to breathe that Monday morning. And I realized there were so many cascading aspects of the podcast, the social media sharing, the conversations, the checking the links, all of the pieces of production were no longer filling my head and my mind. And basically, the very day that I decided to stop the podcast, I sent one final query to an editor that I'd been working with for the last year who, for some reason or another, an article I pitched hasn't been published. It told a big story in my head. I said, oh, they must not like it or the edits aren't great. But I've been checking in consistently every 4 to 8 weeks and pinging them and just saying, hey, I know you're really busy, but did you want to publish this piece? Is it still something that you're looking to ship? Like, what's the status on this? It has actually been 12 months since we first talked about writing together. Well, I sent the email out and that day I got a reply and they said, oh my gosh, your emails have been filtered. For some reason, I just haven't seen them. I am so sorry it took so long to get back to you. And she said, piece is great. Let's publish it. So it was almost as though my focus, my extreme focus on the podcast was blocking me. You can take this with a grain of salt, if you will, but I have found these things to be uncannily aligned. It was blocking me. And as soon as I said to myself, I said, listen, you need more space and energy to focus on writing, it just cleared things up. And my latest piece with Harvard Business Review is now live. I'm so excited by it. It's my second piece with them. This is the irony. It's all about how to set better boundaries and constraints around email because email can be so all-encompassing and pervasive, and it can be really hard to set boundaries. And so it was funny. I wrote this whole piece where it was like, it's okay if you don't reply to email. And then the editors never replied. And I was like, did they take my advice too literally here? The universe tests you if you write about something. By the way, if you write about something or you pick something for your business that you want to focus on, be prepared to be next level challenged in that arena. If you want to talk about boundaries, oh boy, get ready to test your boundary. It's going to be like, oh, you want a next level up in this? You want to be a leader in this? Let's give you the deep stuff. Let's give you the hard stuff. So if you want to write about parenting and business, or you want to write about entrepreneurship, make sure it's the arena that you want to be playing in because it gets bigger, it gets messier, it gets harder. It's just, there's more that comes. So it was really fascinating to watch. I was like, oh, well, do I believe my own advice? Do I take my own advice? And the answer is yes. And I'm actually really proud of the fact that the recommendations that I talk about around email are that we have to take a different kind of stance for the work we're doing in order to get the results that we want to get. And I am fine with being patient and waiting and having slower, deeper communication chains where it does take 3 or 4 weeks to get back and forth to each other. And maybe it takes 10 months to publish an article. So that wasn't the only thing that happened. I also heard back from 2 other editors that I had pitches out to. And it could have been just that it was a coincidence in September and things were starting to align. But I can't help but think that once I had space to write and I said, I'm going to be writing more, the space opened up and I was able to. This happens sometimes in priming and in visualization. We don't actually see the opportunities that are right in front of us because we've pre-clouded our judgment or we've pre-populated our discerning fields in our psyches, and we can't actually see what's right in front of us. But 2 editors got back to me, one for a Medium publication and another for Quartz at Work. And they approved pitches that I'd put out several months ago. And now I have the space to be able to say, okay, I'm going to sink my teeth into drafting these essays. And drafting essays for these articles, for these publications, is not something I can do in little snippets of time here and there. The further I get into my writing career, the more I realize how much time it takes to sink my teeth into an idea and how many drafts it takes to put something together. These are, 40, 50, 60-hour projects. And depending on the amount of research that goes into figuring out the angle of the publication and what's been written before and what's the new idea or the hook, these are not things that I just dash off in a heartbeat. There are occasions when I can pull things together more quickly than that, or I have a jolt of inspiration, or I'm consolidating information that I've taken years to learn. So it may only seem like it takes 4 to 8 hours to write, but that's because I spent 10 years of my life reading a couple hundred books to get there. I needed to tell myself that I had the space to do this so that when the queries came in through my email inbox and I saw them, I said, this is next on my list. This can slot into the space I've created and opened up for this exact project. So really interesting synchronicities happening. I will be working on these pieces in October. In the next update or 2, I hope to share with you how they are going. They are not first on the hierarchy or on my priority list. They're close up there, but the very first thing when it comes to the overall goal of what I'm calling making products with Startup Pregnant or productizing Startup Pregnant, I am focused on making ebooks. And I think I talked about this in the last episode, but I'm focused on taking and curating the incredible amount of research we have done and the number of interviews we have from the last 3 years and putting them into usable, tangible, downloadable, and purchasable form on the website. In addition to writing new content and new pieces, ideas that I've had in my Google Drafts folder for more than a year, sometimes 2 years, things that I really want to ship and see out there in the world because I know that they're going to be useful and support women entrepreneurs and women business owners, especially mothers and parents who are business owners. And when you are strapped for time or the current modality of just hustle harder, put in more hours doesn't work when you're already sleep deprived and you have young children and you have extreme constraints on your time. I have so many ideas of things I want to build. And so this is dedicated to taking the time to write some of those things down and put them into forms that people can access. So the first project that I'm working on is the pregnancy reading list. I have read, I want to say close to 100 books on pregnancy and parenting. I'm sure that's true. I don't have an exact count, but I put in the work of all of these books that I've read from so many different people. And for many of them, I have written short summaries or I have highlights of the concepts or ideas that are really helpful to me or just how much I enjoyed them and I love their philosophy or perspective. And so people ask me and they say, what book should I read? I just had a friend email me my friend got pregnant. What should I give her? And I'm I have this in my brain and I want to start documenting it and tracking it. So I'm going to see how long it takes me to start collecting and organizing all of these summaries. I started it a couple of days ago and I had a 3-hour writing session. And in that 3-hour writing session, I wrote 9 summaries, which may or may not be accurate as a time tracking because I picked the easiest ones first, the ones that I knew. I was I can write about that, no problem. Oh yeah, I know exactly what I would say for this one. And so it may get more complicated or more challenging as I get into books that are harder to summarize. But I'm going to track about how many hours it takes me to create this book. And I'm doing it with a tool called Lean Publishing, which lets me write drafts and ship them. And anybody that purchases a copy of the book gets all of the drafts. So you can see it happening in real time and you get updates. I mean, I wouldn't do it right away because in the beginning, when it's like 10% ready, it's basically just nonsense scratch notes. I don't even publish it that early in the beginning. But once it's available for purchase and it's listed as like 65% done or 75% done, what it means is that I've written the first 30 or 40 book summaries and all of the notes that I'm going to put in there. And then I'm just going to keep adding book summaries if I think that they're useful and relevant to people who find out that they're pregnant. So you can have access to all of the future copies of the book too. It's an iterative MVP style, minimum viable product style of publishing. And it's a platform that is built, it's got a tremendous number of coding books. It's by technologists. I think it's by folks based out in the Bay Area, but I really loved their platform and their style. And so I'm shipping small mini books through that platform. And when it is ready to go, that'll be one of my next, if not my next update, that'll be one of my next updates. And I will share it with you when it's ready. I am hoping that I can, what's a good word? Like bust this out. I'm hoping I can bust this out in 2 weeks or less, but I am. Like, I want to see how quickly I can ship some of these things, especially when I don't have long form podcasting and interviewing and production high up on the calendar and the list. So that's my update. Really excited that I have all these positive confirmations of writing projects. That seems really exciting. And I am off to work on the first mini book that I am focused on this fall, and I will update you in the next update or the one after once it is done. Thanks for keeping me accountable. If you are following along and doing the 90-day challenge with us, you can join us in the Facebook group. Go to startuppregnant.com/community, and that will get you access to our Facebook group. You can join, you can share what project you are working on as we close out the rest of the year. You can just track along and listen to my updates. We will be back in 2020 with new interviews, as well as a couple of special treats and previews of the coming mastermind and other things that are coming up for Startup Pregnant. But for now, get your work done, enjoy the next 90 days, and I will see you whenever I do my next update, because I am not committed to publishing these on a schedule. I am doing these in between and after the writing as part of my reprioritization this fall. Make it a great one, and I will talk to you all soon. Hey everyone, just a heads up and a reminder. If you want to listen to our long form Ask Me Anything sessions, they are 30, 45, and sometimes 60 minutes in length, and we go deep into questions that people have. If you want me to look at your business, you want me to comment on your marketing plan, or you have a question about parenting, pregnancy, or anything in between, we are taking listener questions and I answer them in a monthly Ask Me Anything fireside chat. It's available only to our Patreon supporters. So if you back us at the $7 a month level, you get access to this private podcast. You can get access to all of the past episodes, which is pretty cool. So if you're missing the podcast while we're on our hiatus and you want to take a listen in to these Ask Me Anything episodes, go over to Patreon and become a monthly backer at the $7 per month level, and you'll get access to all of the future episodes as well as all of the past episodes. Keep in mind that you are also supporting the work of Startup Pregnant and our growth in these early days, and that matters a ton. Every dollar helps and counts, and we appreciate so much and are grateful for your support. Patreon.com/startuppregnant will take you right there. That's Patreon. Did I spell that right? Patreon, Patreon. Yes. Patreon.com/startuppregnant will take you there. The link will be right here in the show notes. You can go straight there. $7 a month, and you get access to this entirely exclusive Patreon-only podcast. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. And I always say this, and I mean it. Leave us a review on iTunes if you like our show. It takes a few seconds, and it really does help us a lot. If you want more of what we're talking about, go over to startuppregnant.com and get on our email list. We send out a weekly newsletter with time-saving tips for parents and entrepreneurs. And I always include a weekly gadget or tool or something awesome that we've stumbled upon to help make your life just a little bit easier. And as always, you can reach out to us at hello@startuppregnant.com. We love hearing from you.